The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The contents are copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, July 17th of 2026. Your readers today are
Don Williams
and JJ Patek. And we'll open as we like to do with the weather. It's intervals of clouds and sun today. Wildfire smoke will create unhealthy air quality and poor visibility at times, with a high of 84 degrees and a couple of showers tonight with a low of 70. If you're going to go out, it's highly recommended to wear a mask. I actually saw a runner on the Riverwalk today wearing a mask. It's bad out there. So tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to have a shower and a thunderstorm. Maybe it'll clean that air out with a high of 81 and a low of 64. Sunday will be sun and clouds with a high of 77 and a low of 59. Monday, hazy sunshine with a high of 81 and a low of 67. And Tuesday, another chance to clean up that air with a shower and a thunderstorm with a high of 78 and a low of 61. A little cooler, too. And then Wednesday, we'll have a little morning rain with a high of 76 and a low of 60. And Thursday, we will have plenty of sunshine and a high of 78 and a low of 61. Yesterday, the high was 81 with a low of 70. The normal high is 81 and the low is 63. The record high was 93 back in 1988, and the record low was 50 degrees in 1946, and last year's high was 91. Last year's low was 68. And we had zero rain over the last 24 hours with 0.7 inches month to date. In 70 days, we've had very little rain. The normal month to date is 1.6 inches. Today we have a possibility of 14 hours and 59 minutes of sun, depending on how much that smoke lets get through. And for the national extremes, the high yesterday was at Needles, California. That's Needles again at 102 degrees. And the low is Leadville, Colorado at 40 degrees. The sun rose this morning at 5:52 a.m. The sun sets tonight at 8:51 p.m. And the moon will be rising shortly at 9:42 a.m. and it will set at 10:52 p.m. this evening. And for weather trivia, what is the driest city in the United States? And that's all the way in the southwest in Yuma, Arizona. Which averages only 17 days each year with rain. And I saw the charts yesterday. They got a little rain in Arizona, but I didn't check Yuma. On to you, Don.
Now we're going to turn to the front page for an article from Ben Tsuchimoto. A notice of claim was filed yesterday morning that accuses former Buffalo Public Schools Superintendent Pascal Mubenga of sexual harassment and abuse of authority, and current East District School Board member Louis Mookie Hawkins of harassing, threatening, and retaliatory conduct. Mubenga resigned unexpectedly on Monday at a special meeting of the Buffalo School Board that intended to discuss the replacement of a board member who also resigned. Hawkins remains an active member of the board. The notice of claim, a required precursor to a lawsuit against a government entity, was filed yesterday morning by the Florestal law firm from New York City, along with John V. Elmore, PC in Buffalo. Annette M. Amos, Buffalo Schools Chief Equity and Governance Officer, is the claimant in the lawsuit. I have learned that sometimes the most important thing a woman can do is to refuse to be silent, Amos said. If that means getting into good trouble, then I hope my voice encourages other women and girls to believe that their dignity is worth defending and their boundaries deserve to be respected. Although this filing is specifically against the city school district and its school board, Amos, the legal representative, clearly break down the involvement of Mubenga and Hawkins. This claim arises out of an unlawful and continuing course of workplace sexual harassment, a sexually hostile work environment, quid pro quo sexual harassment, sex-based discrimination, and retaliation directed at claimant by the superintendent of the district, Dr. Pascal Mubenga. The harassing, threatening, and retaliatory conduct of district board member Mookie Hawkins, and the district's knowing failure to prevent, investigate, and remediate that conduct, and its failure to protect that claimant after she reported it, the filing reads. Messages to Mubenga and Hawkins on Thursday were not returned. Amos' claims against Mubenga began December 17, 2025, and continued through early July. The document cites 18 different instances regarding Mubenga's conduct, including a time when the superintendent displayed a box of condoms to the claimant at his house, forced her hand onto his genitals, and struck her buttocks in his conference room at City Hall. The filing continues with 8 specific incidents involving Hawkins, the school board member who ran unopposed in November to replace longtime East District Representative Paulette Woods. Some of the accusations against Hawkins include sexually charged misconduct, while others point to retaliatory actions against Amos after she said she rebuffed the board member's romantic pursuits. Hawkins is the unnamed board member whose conduct remains under investigation by Hodgson Russ LLP, the third-party law firm selected by the Buffalo School Board late last month. Claimant submitted written complaints regarding Mr. Hawkins, which were referred to Human Resources and to outside counsel, Hodgson Russ LLP, for investigation, the notice of claim reads. Throughout that investigation, Mr. Hawkins retained unrestricted access to district buildings and to female employees, and no protective measures were implemented as to claimant. The notice of claim reads that Amos approached Mubenga about Hawkins' continued freedom of access to district-related activities, including at City Hall. When claimant asked Dr. Mubenga about protective measures, he responded that the matter was all on the board. Buffalo Teachers Federation President Rich Nigro said yesterday the union was alarmed and disgusted by the details in the legal filing. In light of Hawkins being identified as the board member under investigation for reported incidents first mentioned internally in early June, Nigro criticized the school board leadership team's handling of the original accusation. Even before guilt or innocence is established, the standard response to such reports of sexual harassment would typically result in the accused individual being placed on administrative leave of absence while the claims are investigated, Nigro said. This did not occur. Amos, the complainant, leads an office in the district that was established in the last year, essentially replacing the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department. Part of the new department's role ensures policies, practices, and systems across Buffalo Public Schools are grounded in fairness, accountability, and transparency. But Amos specifically just started working as the district's ombudsperson in the state attorney general's settlement and plan with the school district due to findings that it disproportionately suspended black and brown students compared to typical students, as well as students with disabilities. She remains employed by the district. The news yesterday morning rocked board members who approved Mubenga's resignation on Monday evening in a vote following an executive session at a special board meeting. The intent of that board meeting was to discuss replacing former North District Representative Cindy McEachern, who resigned in late June due to frustrations with the board's decision-making and operations. Park District Representative Eric Bowen stepped in for President Kathy Evans Brown to address reporters after Wednesday night's scheduled board meeting. District security had to escort Evans Brown from performing arts after reporters approached her aggressively. Bowen had few answers at the time, citing confidentiality restrictions dictated by executive session. Bowen reached out to the Buffalo News yesterday afternoon to give his perspective on the details of the legal filing. I was blown away, he said. I was disgusted. I thought this was a man who was leading the district and we were going forward with him. I didn't understand the personal life that he had. He urged the Buffalo schools community to tune out the nonsense of adults and to focus on the educational betterment of the city's children. Bowen, who emphasized he was not part of Mubenga's hiring process, said it is critical for the board to conduct thorough character evaluations of the next permanent superintendent hire. What does it say about his morals, Bowen asked, regarding Mubenga. He brought his wife here to Buffalo, New York. He's not from here. She came and followed him, and he's doing this behavior, which is disgusting. Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan was asked to comment on Mubenga's resignation during an unrelated press conference yesterday afternoon. He expressed frustrations with the district's handling of the future of Leonardo da Vinci High School and pointed to a recent history of chaotic decisions by the school board. When adults squabble, Ryan said, it's the kids who pay the price.
Oh, sad. Well, from Matthew Trumfio, we have this. Poor air quality persists amid Canadian wildfires. Governor Kathy Hochul said it was already painfully obvious Thursday to anyone who stepped outside in western New York. We're in a very serious health situation right now in the state of New York, she said. The more than 800 wildfires raging across Canada have pushed Thursday's air quality conditions way past the already bleak predictions. An air quality advisory issued early morning Wednesday was extended to run through Thursday. The State Department Environment and Conservation Commissioner Amanda Lefton said Wednesday that she expects Thursday's poor quality to be the peak conditions of the wildfire smoke. The extreme conditions are expected to blow over by Friday, but the effects were being seen and felt everywhere. Buffalo closes outdoor pools and splash pads. Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz told county employees who work outside to head indoors, and Williamsville delayed the start of its annual Old Home Day celebration. Mayor Sean Ryan said the closures may be extended into tomorrow as well. If you have any comorbidities, if you have asthma, if you have COPD, then you should not be doing exercise or activities any activities of exertion, Ryan said. So any of our employees with any of these comorbidities, we're going to be trying to keep them inside, but it's going to be a balance because not everyone has air-conditioned environments where they can retreat to. That's going to be the conversation with the pools for tomorrow. Thursday's air quality conditions, that's today, were originally projected to be unhealthy by the DEC, which estimated peak air quality index of 200. By midday Thursday, Buffalo's index read, well, actually, that was Thursday's yesterday. I'm a day behind already. Buffalo's index read 280, soaring past the original prediction and earning a very unhealthy classification from the DEC. The DEC classifies an air quality index of 0 to 50 as good, 150 to 200 as unhealthy, 200 to 300 is very unhealthy, and anything above 300 as hazardous. Under the so-called very unhealthy conditions, the DEC advises that all physical activities be moved indoors regardless of the person's personal health. People who are especially sensitive to the effects of elevated levels of pollutants, including the very young and those with pre-existing respiratory problems such as heart disease or asthma, should avoid spending time outdoors if possible, State Health Commissioner James McDonald said in a news release on Wednesday. Those who expect symptoms or have symptoms that worsen should consider consulting their personal physician. If you cannot avoid going outdoors, officials recommended wearing a mask. The number of wildfires skyrocketed across the border with more than 800 active fires compared to Wednesday's 54. Before the start of the month, the number of wildfires in Canada had trailed compared with years past. Thursday's fire danger across New York remains either moderate or low. Advisories are in effect across the state, with Upper Hudson Valley and the Adirondacks having just slightly better conditions. The pollutants at fault for the hazy skies are fine particles, which the EPA describes as a mixture of solid and liquid droplets suspended in the air, and can include such things as smoke or ash from wildfires. Those are really bad because they're small and they can go very deep into your lungs and into your bloodstream, said Lena Moo, an expert on air pollution at the University of Buffalo. She said inhaling those fine particles can inflame and stress your upper respiratory system, cardiovascular system, and other organs in the body. For young children and pregnant women, she warned that prolonged exposure to unhealthy air carries both short and long-term effects by increasing the chances of childhood development delay or developing illnesses later in life, such as cardiovascular disease. And as a reminder, by the way, I think we need to remember to check our air filters at our homes. They're getting clogged pretty fast in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. fact, it's time to replace my air conditioner filter.
Yes, me too.
We've got a moment or so to check in with Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. He will meet with victims of Jeffrey Epstein and their lawyers, supposed to be meeting with them yesterday, as he faces a contentious vote on his nomination in the Senate, according to two people familiar with the situation. It was not immediately clear how long the 4:30 p.m. meeting at the Justice Department would last, long enough that it couldn't make it into the paper for an update. Republican Senator Tom Tillis, a key vote on the Senate Judiciary Committee, said yesterday that he would not vote to advance President Trump's nominee for Attorney General unless Blanche meets with victims of Jeffrey Epstein and their lawyers. Blanche likely cannot advance without Tillis' vote. I expect that meeting to occur before I'm willing to vote out of this committee, Tillis said during the second day of Blanche's confirmation hearing to become the nation's top law enforcement officer. I'm trying to get to yes, but this is a very important part of getting yes. Tillis is one of two key Republican senators threatening to derail Blanche's confirmation. Democrats on the committee have pledged to uniformly oppose Blanche, which means the acting attorney general cannot afford to lose even one Republican lawmaker. Well, we'll see how that goes.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading system. It is 16 minutes past the hour, and we're going to move on to editorials. Growth that matters. Welcoming business conditions are bringing more entrepreneurs to Buffalo. Leslie Woodward said it. Buffalo has become an entrepreneurial town. It's high praise coming from this up-and-coming entrepreneur. As an example of regard for our city, around 2 years ago, she relocated her Hudson Valley plant-based dairy and food product startup, Edenesque, to Buffalo. Her enthusiasm reflects Buffalo's growing reputation as an entrepreneurial hub, particularly in technology, healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and software. A major catalyst has been 43 North, the startup accelerator launched in 2014 that invests millions of dollars each year in high-growth companies willing to establish a presence in Buffalo. 43 North is not the only force driving Buffalo's startup momentum. Woodward was a finalist in the Grow New York competition. As reported by the News' Mike Petro, that's when she started vetting the area. Grow New York is an international startup competition designed to attract high-growth food, beverage, and agriculture companies to upstate New York. It's funded by the Empire State Development and administered by Cornell University Center for Regional Economic Advancement, or CREA. Woodward also connected with venture development organization Launch New York and participated in the University of Buffalo's Cultivator programs for startup. The dots all started connecting, including moving her business closer to contract manufacturing and distribution partners for the black woman-owned company. She even hired a chief operational officer from Buffalo. Edenesque is scaling along the East Coast, and Woodward hopes to reach the Midwest before expanding nationally. Her story is inspirational, and her confidence in and her dedication to the Buffalo area are a powerful testament to the city's potential. Love those stories.
Indeed. Well, next we have snack success. Speaking of startups, Petro's piece on Top Seeds, a $1 million winner in the 2021 43 North competition, details how the Cracker Company continues its impressive run while making a positive impression on the local economy and expanding its footprint. Yeah, the 2021 43 North competition, that was 5 years ago, and they're still around. Really kind of a nice thing about that competition. It encourages the businesses to stay
Still here.
The Buffalo-based maker of organic seed-based snacks moved into a 35,000 square foot downtown manufacturing facility 2 years ago. Now, as Petro wrote, the nearly 10-year-old startup is doubling its production, adding a second production line and 9 additional ovens to help increase its capacity to 32,000 packages per day and meet the growing demand. Founder Rebecca Brady turned the healthy snacks she originally created for her children into a nationally distributed brand. Actress and entrepreneur Gwyneth Paltrow has even featured Top Seeds on Goop, calling the snack one she cannot live without. Top Seeds now employs about 70 people, many of them from Buffalo's refugee communities. And investing locally. In yet another investment tied to a 43 North winner, Brown and White Ventures has made a $200,000 commitment in Buffalo-based Bounce Imaging, which makes throwable 360-degree situational awareness technology. The company's next-generation tactical sensors are used by such Army Rangers, U.S. Special Operations Command, elite military units, and the FBI. Brown and White, a private venture capital fund, was started by St. Bonaventure graduates and backed by fellow alumni investors. Though not affiliated with the university, the fund is committed to giving 10% of its net profits to St. Bonaventure's School of Business. Brown and White is also looking to invest in more regional startups in the sectors of healthcare and medical tech, artificial intelligence, and energy and manufacturing. The fund is seeking community-driven women and minority-owned companies that are beyond the idea stage. They must have reached pre-revenue or early revenue. It's another sign that Buffalo is creating conditions for the next generation of entrepreneurs to thrive.
Oh, love good news like that.
Indeed.
There's so few good stories anymore. Those are nice to listen to. We're going back to where we started, being a great city. Well, we have a couple of interesting political cartoons today, and of course, Adam Ziglis. He always has some charm to give us. We have the Statue of Liberty's hand holding up the torch with the flame blowing, and there's a robotic arm reaching down, and on it is labeled AI Data Centers, and it's reaching to grab. And on the torch, we see a little drawing of Kathy Hochul, the governor, and she's saying, "I found the pause button." And we're all aware how people do not want them here in New York. I do think they need to improve the technology, but that's just my opinion. The other one is from Steve Kelly of Creators Syndicate, and we have a man sitting on his armchair reading the paper and his son carrying school books, and the son says, "I have to write a report about Joseph McCarthy. Any thoughts?" And his father replies, "As an abrasive, strident, and divisive senator decades ahead of his time." Then he's reading a paper which says, was that DSA? Or Dems push socialism, communism, and the far left take over. So we see what that opinion is.
Turning to the main editorial, this one from Mark Weisbrot from the Los Angeles Times. The headline says, "Sanctions are making Venezuela's quake toll so much worse." More than 3,800 people have died in Venezuela's June 24th double earthquake, with 16,700 injured, according to current government reports. A medical crisis has emerged for thousands of survivors, and 17,800 are homeless. There are heart-wrenching reports of people trying to dig survivors out of the rubble with their hands, with dozens of children suffering amputations because they could not be reached in time. At a time like this, Venezuelans and the international community shouldn't have to fight for an end to the sanctions that have destroyed the nation's economy and hobble its recovery, nor for the country to have access to the billions of dollars worth of assets that belong to it. But we do, because the role of sanctions and frozen assets has received far too little public attention. From 2012 to 2020, Venezuela suffered what is likely the most severe economic contraction in a depression that has occurred without a war. Data from the International Monetary Fund show a 74% decline in its GDP during that time. This is a loss of income about 3 times larger than what people in the United States experienced during the Great Depression of the 1930s. This was not a natural disaster like the earthquake, but a human-made one. IMF data show that 88% of this loss took place following U.S. economic sanctions that began in 2015. The destruction accelerated with the Trump sanctions starting in 2017 that cut the country off from most international finance and then from the vast majority of its foreign exchange earnings. These shocks would have pushed almost any country into a severe crisis.
As a result, Venezuela was already facing a humanitarian crisis before the earthquakes hit. According to data from the European Commission, before June 2026, there were 7.9 million people of a population of 28.5 million who were in need of humanitarian assistance. 40% of Venezuelans are facing moderate to severe food insecurity, and about 56% of the population was in extreme poverty. 86% were dependent on contaminated water sources. Nearly half of Venezuela's doctors and many health professionals and other skilled workers, including 200,000 teachers, left the country as the economy fell apart. A study I co-authored with Francisco Rodriguez and Silvio Randon, with results published last July in Lancet Global Health, estimated the broad unilateral sanctions like these, the vast majority of which are imposed by the United States, cause an additional 564,000 deaths annually. This is comparable to the lives lost worldwide due to armed conflict. A majority of these deaths were estimated to be among children under 5 years old. It's sad. The death rate among Venezuelans grew throughout Venezuela's depression, with more than 100,000 additional deaths during the years 2015 to 2020 of the economic collapses that its sanctions. Venezuela has crucial resources that is not being allowed to access. The United States and Europe are blocking the nation from more than $11 billion that Venezuela should legally have. About $4 billion is sitting at the Bank of England. It was frozen there from Venezuela's central bank as part of a regime change effort in 2019 led by the United States. Of course, the UK has no right to seize and hold these assets that belong to Venezuela. About $4.5 billion is at the IMF in the form of international assets called special drawing rights, Venezuela's share of an allocation made to member countries in 2021. Access was blocked as part of pressure for a regime change, but the United States removed the president of Venezuela in January, then has since recognized the current government of Venezuela. The IMF followed, but it is not clear how much of these assets Caracas will be able to use and when. Venezuelans need this money and also the gold that the UK is holding right now. There are some billions of dollars more that are being held by the Trump administration, despite an executive order stating that these funds constitute property of the government of Venezuela, quote unquote. This is cash from the sale of Venezuela's oil, which the Trump administration has taken control. The United Nations now estimates that the post-earthquake reconstruction of Venezuela will cost about $37 billion, which is 33% of the current gross or GDP. Economists and other scholars have called for the lifting of Venezuela's ongoing economic and financial sanctions, asset freezes, and via a debt jubilee, onerous debt burdens.
An end to the economic sanctions is needed. The U.S. Treasury has issued a license for 4 months to allow us for earthquake relief, but that is not nearly enough. The central bank in Caracas is still under sanctions, and this will continue to interfere with the post-earthquake recovery. It is also well documented that important financial transactions and even relief work can be prevented because of what is called overcompliance. Banks, financial institutions, and other companies avoid transactions because of real and perceived risk from sanctions, including the ambiguity of the U.S. executive orders that authorize them. The largest life-saving action in the near future of post-earthquake Venezuela will come from getting the biggest players in the world to stop blocking access to Venezuela's billions of dollars of assets, and to stop causing further damage and loss of life through economic sanctions. Sanctions target and punish the civilian population in pursuit of a political goal. Once relatively rare, they have become a tool of first resort, according to the U.S. Treasury, probably because the resulting fatalities are mostly unseen. But more people each year, including members of Congress, who are recognizing the economic violence, collective punishment, and lethal human consequences of these sanctions and are pushing back. As the illegality and human toll of these sanctions become more widely known, the U.S. government will be increasingly forced to abandon them. These are the opinions of Mark Weisbrot of the Los Angeles Times.
Yeah, gives you a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It is now 30 minutes past the hour, so we're running right on time, and now we're moving on to My View. And today we get an article from Donald Friedrich, who has a few words for his grandsons, and he says, passing along wisdom to the next generation. Writing a letter that someone may keep or refer to for the rest of their life turns out to be much harder than I thought. Many of us have received a job well done or great job card or note, and if you are anything like me, you really appreciate the fact that someone took the time and effort to say thank you or express kind words to you. I think it's safe to assume all these notes or cards are truly heartfelt. Undertaking a particularly difficult or extra task at work has always seemed to be followed up with a special thank you, especially if you had a mature, caring boss or manager. That's usually not the kind of note or email you would keep around for a long time. I do have several cards and notes that I still cherish years later, some from pastors or friends after church play or a special event that I was part of. But again, most of the notes came after the task or event had passed. Birthday cards can be clever, funny, joyful, or celebrate another year of living but rarely project into the future. The same can be said for anniversary or graduation cards, which are very nice and complimentary but celebrate or refer to something in the past. My wife Doreen and I know and have had the privilege of knowing many couples who celebrated 50, 60, or even 70 years of marriage. Sometimes words in a card can't express what a joy it's been having all of them in our lives. I was honored when I was asked to write a letter to one of our grandsons about the rites of passage he's experiencing as he approaches middle school and his teenage years. I shared the opportunity with my men's Bible study class, and they all expressed what a great privilege this is and reminisced about notes or cards they received and how they still keep and cherish them till this day. I'm more comfortable printing instead of writing cursive, so I decided to print the letter on paper and with pen on paper for a more personal touch. I will definitely be sharing with him some principles and standards I try to live out, and of course I will let him know that I often come up short. I'll remind him to stay strong in his Christian faith and the importance of family and friends. Keeping God first in his life will influence every decision he makes. It may seem old-fashioned or out of touch in today's world, but I will emphasize the importance of always being a gentleman. How you behave and dress still matters. Politeness matters. Not all the world is rude and crude. There are still many people who would appreciate a thank you or a door held open by a nicely dressed young man who takes pride in doing the right thing. Well, I like this. Doreen and I try to be the best examples we can to all our grandkids, even though we know we sometimes don't always succeed. Challenges, setbacks, and rejections are part of every stage of life. I've learned it's how you deal with them that helps us to grow and learn. I may not be ready for the high school or college graduation or speech circuit, but I will do my best to pass along a letter from the heart to my grandsons about faith in God, being a gentleman in challenges, and taking ownership. When the time comes, I look forward to writing similar letters to my other 3 grandkids. You know, I keep track in my little pink notebook here of people being nice and other good things that happen. It's a nice thing because it makes you feel good when things aren't going right. You can look at your little book in your pocket and say, yeah, good things happened.
Good things happen and are too infrequently noted, it seems to me.
Well, I note them because they help me when I'm not having a good day.
I took my leather jacket to a shoe repair place that advertised they dealt with leather garments and had it refurbished, and it looked really great. And within a couple of weeks, I'd gotten several compliments. I went back to the shop to thank the woman for doing the work on it. She almost passed out from the shock of being thanked for something. People complain about everything that they think is wrong. But
I like to send thank you notes to businesses who do it right.
yeah, too often it doesn't happen.
And they display them. They're so happy to receive a thank you.
Yep. Well, another voice today comes from Mark Castell, the Executive Director of Organic Eye, a farm policy research group based in Lafarge, Wisconsin. The U.S. population has been used as unwitting lab rats in a continuous 80-year scientific experiment. begun when chemical companies transformed some of their products from chemical warfare agents to agrochemicals. In the U.S., over 800 pesticides are registered for use to, quote, protect our food crops. One group of pesticides containing PFAS, that's per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are applied throughout the country to crops such as apples, corn, kale, spinach, strawberries, and wheat. We now have a serious public health problem. Federal officials estimate 98% of Americans carry measurable levels of PFAS. They call them forever chemicals. They're called forever chemicals because they don't biodegrade in their bloodstream. And the CDC has found major PFAS compounds in all U.S. children aged 3 to 11 who were sampled. These chemicals are anticipated to have lifelong effects, including increased cancer risk, metabolic and cardiovascular issues, immune system suppression, endocrine disruption, and reproductive and developmental harm. For decades, the nonprofit Environmental Working Group has published its Shopper's Guide to Pesticides in Produce. As executive director of an organic industry watchdog organization, Organic Eye, I question the legitimacy of encouraging shoppers to purchase conventional, non-organic produce commonly contaminated with toxic agrochemical residues. EWG's narrow focus on produce contamination, advice to eat 15 mostly clean and limit exposure to 12 dirty produce items, fails to address the total exposure beyond just fruits and vegetables and to include grains and animal products that drive overall toxic residues even higher. Eating an all-organic diet gives consumers the best option to avoid harmful pesticide residuals. Yes, organic food can cost more. We need to reshape how we think about affordability. While appearing inexpensive at the register, foods that are ultra-processed and or contain high amounts of added sugar and salt fuel chronic illnesses like obesity and diabetes, while also degrading soil and water through unsustainable farming practices. Choosing organic is not a luxury purchase. It is a long-term investment in healthier families, healthier farm communities, and a healthier food system. The opinion of Mark Castell, Executive Director of Organic Eye.
Yeah. Boy, that's a big subject. But we'll move on to our next article. Much as I'd love to comment, we shouldn't be doing that here. Companies shift toward ads with normal people. This is from Amishan Maroof from in Buffalo Next. The CPAP Baddies assembled in Vancouver, Canada. The first official hangout for users of the sleep apnea treatment device was an influencer-style event hosted by the medical company ResMed, complete with merchandise, hors d'oeuvres, and a photo booth. Oh, okay. At a podcast-style corner, a host asked attendees who scored invites through an Instagram link open to the public, "When you first heard of CPAP Baddie, what did you think?" Their answers were later posted on social media. ResMed, which dominated the market for the medical devices, is among the companies shifting toward influencer-style videos, but with regular customers, employees, not cultivated internet personalities. This can mean having employees post content with a fuzzy mic while on the clock, hosting influencer-type events for customers, or other efforts. These tactics often cater to baddies. Generation Z, Gen Z, speak for any fashionable, confident person to reach younger, usually female audiences. ResMed started its Baddies page this spring and began creating social media content with CPAP users. Last year, Polymarket started Telegram and X pages for the baddies of Polymarket. Last year for girlies who wanted to get into the betting markets. And Starbucks announced last year that some of its employees would create social media content like influencers for the company's official accounts. Brands are recognizing that normal people content outperforms polished campaigns. Keith Bendis, Chief Strategy Officer at influencer marketing agency Linquia, told CNN over email. ResMed said the CPAP Baddies pages reached 4.2 million views over the past 30 days and have 6,200 followers across Instagram and TikTok. Okay. But even if the content with normal people seems authentic, it's part of a detailed strategy from companies that often have huge marketing budgets. Some of these baddies are paid through brand partnerships or ad revenue on posts. The CPAP baddies attending events did not receive any extra cash. And influencer-style marketing doesn't always work. The Baddies of Polymarket page, for example, hasn't posted anything since April on X, and the company faced fierce scrutiny this year for its deceptive marketing tactics using paid creators. At the end of the day, these campaigns are essentially brands spinning up a fan account that they themselves operate, Bendis said. Anti-marketing is the vibe companies are going for these days. Consumers have outgrown TV commercials and billboards, and a review from an influencer can come off as more authentic than a TV advertisement. A GoDaddy survey of 1,000 consumers in 2024 showed that 40% of the Generation Z trusted a product posted there by an influencer over a business, and more likely to buy something that recommended by an influencer over a friend. We've probably never seen our ads on linear TV, ResMed Chief Marketing Officer Katrin Pucknat told CNN. We're running a lot of experiments to see what works. But paid influencer marketing might have reached its peak, and not every company has the kind of trendy product influencers want to work with. Instead, companies like ResMed are now seeing a payoff for more organic ambassadors. The internet was charmed earlier this year by the Staples baddie, TikTok user Caden Rowland, who worked as a print specialist at a Staples in upstate New York. She taught viewers several different ways they could utilize their local Staples, create direct marketing campaigns, renew their passports, and get their shoddy by 40% off mug. Okay. I don't have any formal training in marketing, Rowland told CNN previously. I'm just opinionated with cheekbones.
Opinionated with cheekbones.
I'm trying to figure out what that shoddy with a 40% off mug is. I guess I'm out of touch.
Well, let me know if you figure it out. Actually, it's a slang term originating from African American vernacular English as an alternative spelling of shorty.
Oh.
All right.
Whatever.
Well, Rachel Barber of USA Today reports that small business creation is on the rise. Lily Malio's days are busy, but she never dreads going to work. On most days, the door to Lily's, her colorful boutique in Clinton, Connecticut, opens at 10 a.m. Malio, age 22, straightens merchandise, places orders, and helps customers who are often surprised by her age. I always have so much fun, and I feel so creative being there, Malio said. That's huge for me. Last summer, her life looked different. She had just graduated from Emmanuel College in Boston with a marketing degree and was finishing submitting more than 100 job applications. Then she asked herself a question that had been rattling around in her head for years. What if I start my own business? Today she has a storefront, website, and a growing following on social media. Lily's boutique is turning a profit. She did what many Americans are trying to do in 2026, even as the labor market has shown some signs of picking back up. In the first half of this year, about 3.1 million Americans filed paperwork to start their own business, up nearly 17% from the about 2.6 million who filed during the same period a year ago, according to census data. There are quite a few things that factor into why we're seeing so many new formations, but it's very, very clear this wasn't just a blip, said Whitney Ward, Public Relations Director for Registered Agents, a company that provides business formation services and tracks business creation. This is a very significant and very strong trend that we are seeing month after month. In a year in which U.S. employers added just 181,000 jobs, according to revised Labor Department data, Malio said the free time she had while waiting to hear back from prospective employers is what pushed her to open Lily's. Even if it didn't work out for me and I didn't get the loan that I had applied for, I had the time to actually look into it and put the effort in and see how far it could go, Malio said. It wouldn't surprise me if so many other people just happened to be in the same boat. A second reason behind the growth in business creation could be that some of the 1 in 3 Americans who took on side hustles to make ends meet as the cost of essentials rose are turning them into full-fledged businesses. Another reason behind the growth could be people who want to take their fate into their own hands amid layoff anxiety. 61% of employees reported feeling it in 2025, according to Harris Poll survey for Into, an outplacement and career development company. Small business creation on the rise.
Yeah, well, that's good. I don't even shop on the internet. I like going to a nice physical store. I like to look at what I want to buy and handle it.
And I like supporting local people.
And supporting people in business. And that's, I like to talk to them, you know. And I even complimented a bank recently on a job they did that was so good.
Oh, my.
And boy, were they pleased with that.
A bank.
And you can't do that very often. Well, as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. And if you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Two memorials, McGrew Lillian D. and Prosick Nestor B. And then for the actual obituaries, we have Bismalis Ulysses, age 95. Dunbar Lori M. née Cherniak, age of 69. Guido Peter F., aged 86, of Hamburg. Jaros Edward, also known as Ed, 87 years of age. Khan, M.D., Kenneth Robert, 86 years of age. We have a couple, Lloyd, Larry and Deborah. He passed away on January 16th of 2025, and she passed away on December 13th of 2025. Matthew Zick, FSSJ, Sister Ann Margaret, she was 90 years old. And Stanton, Mary R. née Zappia, and we don't have an age on her. She's from Eggertsville. Again, if you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. And we do have one obituary of note. Pat Oliphant, 90 years old, and a world-renowned political cartoonist, sadly missed. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning political cartoonist whose cutting sketches critiqued power and corruption in U.S. politics over a lengthy career that made him one of the most recognizable and lauded artists in the newspaper business, and he died on Monday morning at the age of 90 years old. His son Grant said he died in his home in Santa Fe, New Mexico after suffering a variety of age-related illnesses. Pat Oliphant was widely admired, highly influential newspaper cartoonist whose work lampooned American power brokers, chronicling their missteps with his own brand of grim fury, from President Richard Nixon to President Trump. He was often described as the most syndicated editorial cartoonist in the country, and his daily political cartoons once appeared more than 500 publications worldwide. His talent for distilling the essential truths of a war, a White House mired in scandal, the many-sidedness of the embattled politician on the nighttime news into an image that said something meaningful, often humorous, and was unrivaled in his time. President Carter, I remember this, drawn with absurdly large teeth and lips to accentuate the former peanut farmer's mannerisms. President Gerald Ford, cast as a man who could take a fall and keep on grinning. The Catholic Church and its pedophilia scandals all came under the scrutiny of Oliphant's unwavering satirical eyes. I think he was the best cartoonist of the last 100 years, said Edward Sorrell, a prominent magazine illustrator and friend of Oliphant. There hasn't been anybody like him. He made presidents quake in their boots, said Hampton Sides, a Santa Fe-based writer and friend. At the same time, you weren't anybody unless you were skewered by Pat Oliphant. He was just a brilliant satirist. He was born in Adelaide, Australia in 1935 and got his professional start in 1955 as an in-house cartoonist at The Advertiser in his hometown. After nearly a decade, he moved to the U.S., first landing in the Denver Post in Colorado in 1964, where he won a Pulitzer Prize within a few years, although with an asterisk. He was awarded the Editorial Cartooning Prize in 1967 for They Won't Get Us to the Conference Table, Will They?, which appeared in the paper the year before. The cartoon showed Ho Chi Minh, president of North Vietnam, carrying a dead Viet Cong soldier. It was, in Oliphant's estimation, the weakest of his work from that year. While Oliphant did submit it intentionally, he was critical of the choice and refused to enter his work for future Pulitzers. And he later worked at the Washington Star and also worked independently for portions of his career, enjoying widespread syndication, and generally took minimalistic and sparse approach for captions. The most influential editorial cartoonist now working, the New York Times previously wrote of Oliphant in 1990. He lost his eyesight around 2015 due to glaucoma and macular degeneration and retired from professional newspaper work, ending a career that ran from 1965 to 2015, but he always continued to draw. And in a 2021 interview with Pasatiempo, Oliphant wrote softly, remnants of his Australian accent breaking through here and there. Seated on his patio, not far from his studio, his opinions were as barbed as ever. He emerged from retirement in 2017, lured by the prospect of turning his satirical eye toward Trump, whom he considered nothing short of a bonanza for someone in his field. He met his now late wife, art dealer and restorer Susan Korn, Conway Oliphant in Washington, and Conway Oliphant died in December of 2025 at the age of 92. He was known for his political sketches, and he was also a writer, painter, sculptor, lithographer, and an animator, and his friends felt he was underappreciated as a fine artist. And his body of work is going to be analyzed and studied by scholars for a long time. He's in the pantheon, Side said. There's maybe only 5 or other political cartoons that even closely rival him, so we'll miss him. I loved his skewering.
Well, turning to the Royal Stars from Georgia Nichols, happy birthday for Friday, July 17th. You're friendly, easygoing, and tenacious. You're also strong-willed, sympathetic, and focused. This is a year of learning and teaching. Take time to renew your spiritual or religious beliefs. Explore philosophies that will give you a better self-awareness and get you closer to the true meaning of your life. For Aries, this is an excellent day to work and be productive. Finish old projects and wrap up loose ends. You'll be surprised at how swiftly the job goes. Tonight, how is your health? Taurus, today is full of creative opportunities, especially if you work in a creative field or if you make art. It's also a great day to socialize. Tonight, play. Gemini, with Mars in your sign now, you have a lot of energy to get things done. Admittedly, Mercury is still retrograde. However, you can use this energy to finish old projects. Tonight, relax at home. For Cancer, this is a great day to schmooze with everyone. Enjoy talking to siblings, neighbors, and relatives. Tonight, enjoy lengthy discussions. Leo, today you will enjoy buying beautiful things for yourself and loved ones. You also might have some good money-making ideas. Tonight, maintain your belongings. Virgo, today the moon is in your sign, lined up with beautiful Venus, which makes you cheerful, sociable, warm, and friendly. Tonight, you're strong. Libra, today is full of contradictions because in one way you are in the spotlight of the sun, which is flattering to you. You might be asked to take on increased responsibilities. Tonight, enjoy time alone. Scorpio, friendships are important to you today. In fact, someone in particular might be very special, perhaps to the point that a platonic friendship turns romantic. Tonight, friendships. Sagittarius, today people notice you to the degree that some people know personal details about your private life. Tonight, be modest. Capricorn, today you want to break free of your routine and do something different. Ideally, of course, you would love to travel. Tonight, explore and learn. Aquarius, although Mercury retrograde might create delays and silly mistakes in your work, today you can use it to your advantage. Work to wrap up loose ends. Tonight, check your finances. Pisces, this is a playful, romantic time for you. However, your home scene might be somewhat busy dealing with guests, increased activity, even chaos. Tonight, show genuine interest. Okay, well, today in history. And in 1453, on July 17th, French forces defeated the British at Gascony near the town of Castillon-sur-Dordogne in the Battle of Castillon, the last battle of the 100 Years' War, which lasted, if I recall correctly, about 112 years, in fact.
Yeah.
1862, a precursor to the Emancipation Proclamation. The Confiscation Act of 1862 was enacted by Congress. In 1945, the three leaders of the Allied nations, Winston Churchill, Harry S. Truman, and Joseph Stalin, held the first meeting of the Potsdam Conference to negotiate post-war peace and reconstruction, as well as what to do with Germany. In 1955, Disneyland, the amusement park based on the creations of Walt Disney, officially opened for a press preview in Anaheim, California, and then opened the next day to the public. In 1996, TWA Flight 800 exploded shortly after takeoff from John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, killing all 230 people aboard. And in 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 was shot down by Russian separatists with a surface-to-air missile over eastern Ukraine, killing 298 passengers and crew members. And in 2014, Eric Garner died at age 43 from a chokehold by New York City Police Department officer Daniel Pantaleo after being arrested for selling cigarettes illegally. Video of his death with him saying, "I can't breathe," sparked widespread protests over police brutality.
Get an article here from Jessica Gwynn of the USA Today. AI helps with hiring. Is it picking who to fire, too? A lawsuit lodged against Meta Platforms accused the technology giant of using AI-powered software to target people with disabilities or employees on medical leave for layoffs. Legal experts say the legal action, likely the first of its kind against a major U.S. company, challenges the growing use of AI to help make hiring, promotion, performance, and termination decisions. The lawsuit in Oakland, California federal court this month alleges Meta relied on AI-assisted systems to score and rank employees on such factors as productivity when it cut thousands of jobs this year, harming employees who missed work because of illness or to care for family members. The 26 anonymous plaintiffs from 6 states were notified in May that their jobs would be eliminated on July 22nd. They alleged the company violated federal and state anti-discrimination laws that shield workers with disabilities who take medical leave or who are pregnant, and they are seeking a preliminary ruling blocking Meta from carrying out the layoffs until they can pursue their claims in private arbitration.
Time for a
and
break.
Meta denied the layoffs were conducted by AI. Well, you're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, July 17th of 2026 on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and we'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Don Williams
and JJ Patek.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
And we're back.
We're back.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
JJ Patek.
and Don Williams. Turning to the local pages, Justin Sondel reports that as far as council member Rachel Nowakowski is concerned, the party needs to end on Chippewa Street for the under 21 crowd. In the wake of a violent weekend on Chippewa where a teenager was shot by another teenager and a member of the Buffalo Police Department's top brass was captured on video pushing a woman to the ground, Nowakowski said Thursday he is exploring making this trip only accessible to adults only on weekend nights. There are two onlys in there, and I think neither of them is the place where it should be, but I'm a copy editor. What can I say? In a letter to be submitted to the Common Council shared with the news by Nowakowski, he asks the city's law department to explore creating an ordinance that would allow city police, in coordination with the entertainment district leadership, to put barriers in place restricting access on Chippewa Street at the intersections with Main Street and with Delaware Avenue. Identification checkpoints would be in place there with access limited to people over the age of 21. The ordinance as drafted would apply to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights after 10 p.m. Cities around the country have their entertainment districts set up this way, said Nowakowski, whose district includes Chippewa, so this isn't something unorthodox to do. Several Chippewa Street establishments allow people over 18 into their clubs, but Nowakowski and law enforcement officials say the bigger issue is the pervasive presence of young adults below the drinking age hanging out on the street and in surrounding parking lots, often openly drinking, starting fights, and abusing police. Over the 4th of July weekend, several brawls broke out on the street, though those incidents were overshadowed by the raucous party on East Delavan Avenue, where 11 people were shot. Last weekend, an 18-year-old was arrested for shooting a 17-year-old in the back. In the investigation of the crime, police recovered 4 guns loaded with 45 rounds across all the weapons. Saturday evening, amid several street fights, Deputy Police Commissioner Craig Macy was captured on video pushing a woman to the ground shortly after breaking up a fight. The department has opened an internal affairs investigation into the incident and released Macy's body-worn camera footage this week. He remains on duty while the investigation takes place. Our City Action Buffalo, an advocacy group, released a statement earlier in the week calling for Police Commissioner Erica Shields to suspend Macy until the investigation is complete. Shields said the department is not suspending Macy during the investigation, and she declined to comment on the specifics of Macy's actions captured on video, but she did say that the footage of Macy breaking up the fight is indicative of the environment that police have been dealing with on Chippewa Street throughout the summer. Asked by a news reporter why Macy, the department's second-in-command, was involved in crowd control and breaking up fights, Shields said that he believes that leadership should be on the ground helping with difficult issues for the department. I think that Deputy Commissioner Macy is a firm believer in leading from the front, and he felt very strongly that the officers need to see that the command staff is brought in to do what they're trying to do, Shields said. It's the same reason that every chief, every commander worked July 4th. I'm really working to get a culture where the officers understand there is not an ivory tower in my administration. Chippewa has been a beast, Shields said. We've had the fights that were there not only Saturday night but leading up to that have been constant. The chaos, the drunkenness. We've had shootings. There needs to be a more holistic response. She said the department is in conversations with Mayor Sean Ryan's administration, entertainment district business groups, and gun violence prevention groups to work on solutions. For us to get our handle on it, it's just going to require more than just BPD being out there, she said. Nowakowski said the city and police have to do more to hold the owners of public parking lots in the area accountable for allowing the parties to occur on their property, Nowakowski said. He is exploring measures like built environment features that would keep unauthorized vehicles out of lots and requiring owners to hire additional security to ensure illegal activities are not happening on their property. The Buffalo Police are not private security for private lot enforcement, Nowakowski said, and when officers are addressing large parking lot parties in private lots, it creates a dangerous environment for police officers to patrol and to dissipate the disturbances that occur in those lots. Ryan, speaking generally about the violence on Chippewa Street, said the city wants the district to be successful, which will not happen if it continues to be a drinking fight club. He said some changes will begin immediately, as the city has already started contacting the owners of private parking lots and letting them know that they need to stop illegal activity from happening on their property. We let them know our expectations is their lots are not to be used for these activities, so we're going to work with them to try and get them to staff those lots at nighttime, Ryan said. Ryan said they are also planning to close the street to traffic in the heart of the Strip during peak party hours, a move they plan to implement this weekend. People are waiting for their friends to come out of bars and end up stopping traffic, Ryan said. It backs it up, but it also adds to a chaotic scene. So we want to really try to reduce the chaos. We're going to take these two concrete steps this weekend. Well, we'll see how that goes.
I seem to remember when I was younger, the underage people could not go on Chippewa, and I don't know why they ever ended that, because that was just the way it was.
Can't help you.
Oh, well. Whatever they wanted to do with that, it didn't work. From Matthew Tranfillo. Changes aimed to safeguard cars and people in Niagara Square. Niagara Square in front of City Hall is one of the most recognizable spots in Western New York, but in a few months you might not recognize it. Mayor Sean Ryan announced that a number of renovations are coming to the iconic traffic circle, all designed to make it safer for anyone in it or trying to get across it. Oh, that'll be good. This has not been easy to navigate for a long time, and from my window I can look out every day and watch people beep and almost run into each other. Cut across 3 lanes of traffic, and then I watch the pedestrians try to enter that square, and they're playing a bit of a game of Frogger, he said. So we need to make some changes, you think? Over the coming months, the city will convert Niagara Square to a single traffic lane. Add more audible pedestrian walking signals around the square, filling in gaps without them. Shorten crosswalk distance through the lower number of travel lanes. Prevent vehicles from parking on the brick surface surrounding the McKinley Monument and other restricted sections in the square. Amen. Add seating and amenities to the square to make it more welcoming for visitors. No major closures are expected throughout the renovations. Niagara Square is the heart of the city of Buffalo, Ryan said during Thursday's news conference. It's where people go to celebrate. It's where we almost won the Stanley Cup. It is where people come to protest and make their voices heard, and so we celebrate. We do ceremonies, community events. It's the place to be, but we want to make it better. Ryan and his office landed on the changes in response to the results from a survey made publicly available on its website last month, and the results found that 71% of respondents felt the square was unsafe for pedestrians. 75% felt it was unsafe for cyclists. 42%, is that all, felt it was unsafe for drivers. Is that all? Ryan said the results confirmed a belief his office already held. One of the more noticeable changes has already gone into effect, as the city painted yellow traffic lines around the square to restrict drivers to 1 lane this week. Parking Commissioner Justin Booth said the change will make the traffic patterns clear for drivers and reduce the speed people travel around the square. Booth also said the city will ease into the new parking enforcement by first issuing warning notices as drivers get accustomed to the changes before they begin enforcing penalties for the new rules. He said the new restrictions apply to all vehicles, including city-owned vehicles that have traditionally parked in the no parking areas. Ryan said special parking exemptions. Okay, where are we? For events such as weddings at City Hall will be available through a permitting process. The reduced traffic lanes allow for vendors on Food Truck Thursday to park their vehicles just outside the pedestrian area in the square. By drawing the food trucks to the outside perimeter, we're drawing people and changing their patterns to go into the grassy shaded area, which is where we'll have more tables and chairs, Ryan said. So let's hope that improves things. They got to do something.
Well, we'll see. Officials offer details of inmates' homicide is the headline for Sandra Tan's article here. 2 holding center inmates stand accused of second-degree murder after investigators believe the 2 men followed another inmate into his jail cell on July 4th, with one strangling the victim while the other held him down. It took 4 minutes, law enforcement officials said, based on video evidence. Sheriff John Garcia also said 2 other inmates apparently witnessed the incident but said nothing. The 2 incarcerated men accused of restraining and killing Antonio Pizarro have been identified by the Erie County District Attorney's Office as Chico Garcia, 49, who officials said choked Pizarro to death, and Skylar Gill, 21, who investigators said aided Chico Garcia by holding Pizarro's legs so he couldn't move after he was forced face down in his jail cell bed. The two are both being held on murder charges under the accomplice liability theory, meaning that they acted together and murdered Mr. Pizarro while acting in concert, District Attorney Michael Kane said. As first reported by the Buffalo News last week, Pizarro was targeted and killed by two inmates in the Erie County Holding Center. Pizarro, 27, was found unresponsive by jail staff who tried to revive him with CPR but failed. Erie County Sheriff John Garcia said both men were arraigned in court yesterday morning. If convicted, they face sentences of life in prison, Kane said. Kane and Sheriff Garcia held a joint news conference after the arraignment to detail the homicide investigation and charges against the two men being held responsible for Pizarro's death. When I first heard news of what happened, my heart sank, Garcia said. We weren't able to share information on this homicide until today due to the grand jury actions, which, by design, are secret proceedings. Pizarro's mother, Nadia, said she has been grief-stricken over the incident and assailed the sheriff's office for what transpired. She also attended yesterday's arraignment. I will never stop fighting for justice for my son Antonio until all those responsible for his death are held accountable, she said in a statement to the Buffalo News. Kane said there is little doubt among investigators about what transpired and who was responsible. This was a cold-blooded, calculated murder, Sheriff Garcia said. Let's be clear about this. They planned this and they executed this murder. Kane said that after Pizarro was followed into his room, Chico Garcia forced Pizarro face down on his bed and began choking him from behind, initially with a strip of bedsheet, then with his arm. While Garcia was choking the victim, Gill held his legs, restricting the victim from moving, Kane said. Garcia strangled the victim to death. Sheriff's officials said yesterday that holding center deputies did not realize something had happened to Pizarro until about 30 minutes after the attack is believed to have occurred. A deputy went to check on Pizarro after he failed to appear for lunch. The two men now charged with murder have been isolated and held under 24-hour observation, also known as suicide watch. Evidence has been gathered and multiple investigating authorities notified. Pizarro, 27, was taken into custody on July 1st and was being held on parole violation charges, Kane said. That would mean his death occurred just over 3 days after being taken into custody. He was slated to have a parole violation hearing the following week, Kane said. Chico Garcia, meanwhile, was being held in the same housing unit on charges related to 3 different burglaries, including one accusation of robbery, Kane said. He had been held in the holding center since May. Gill of Lancaster was in custody on charges pending in city court, including a couple of felonies, he said. According to the available evidence and witness testimony, there were no signs of an argument or ill will among the men involved in the fatal incident. Before Garcia and Gill followed Pizarro into his cell, all the incarcerated people in that linear stretch of the jail were roaming that cell block freely as part of their recreation time. Holding center cameras do not look directly into any jail cell due to privacy regulations. Video evidence appears to show Pizarro and one of his assailants moving down the hallway and turning into Pizarro's cell, Under Sheriff William Cooley said. Then the two suspects step out briefly before returning into the cell. It's difficult to discern exactly when he was strangled, but it happened definitely within that window, Cooley said. Pizarro was checked on about 30 minutes later when he failed to appear for lunch. Medical response personnel were called at around 10:58 a.m. Pizarro was pronounced dead at 11:54 a.m., but Kane said Pizarro probably died much earlier when the attack initially happened. We think by the time they left his cell, he was dead, Kane said. Early on this investigation, it was pretty clear what occurred here, Kane said. In regard to any changes the Sheriff's Office is making to the holding center to prevent future inmate assaults in the aftermath of the Pizarro fatality, Sheriff Garcia said, "We are doing an after-incident investigation into this internally to see how we could get better, but that's something that we always do. This is a very antiquated facility. We're going to have to look at where sightline's an issue here."
And from Matt Glynn, Buffalo Next Development, Genesee County Data Center faces uncertainty amid Hochul concerns. Genesee County Economic Development officials say the moratorium on new hyperscale data centers creates uncertainty about the Stream Data Center's plan for a $19.5 billion complex. But the Genesee County Economic Development Center indicated it would press ahead on reviewing the project. The GCEDC, in a statement, said it recognized the concerns Governor Kathy Hochul raised about data centers in her executive order, but the agency added it was very disappointed because the uncertainty the order creates for Stream's project. We strongly believe what the order is requiring as far as the creation of a framework for the construction of data centers in New York is being fulfilled in our due diligence for this project, the GCEDC said. The Stream project and the associated due diligence should be the prototype the state agency should be looking at as a model for this framework. With that, the GCEDC is going to continue with the state environmental quality review process, including our board of directors considering making a consistency determination as it relates to SEQR and taking further action if approved. We're going to continue to proceed in the business as usual mindset. The one-year statewide moratorium implemented by Hochul calls for the state to establish a framework to protect the environment, electrical grid, and utility ratepayers. The GCEDC declined to comment beyond its statement. The agency owns the Science, Technology, and Advanced Manufacturing Park, or STAMP, in the town of Alabama, where Stream plans to build its data center complex. A Dallas-based Stream has yet to comment on the moratorium or what effect it might have on Genesee County project. Stream has previously cited the benefits of the data center complex would deliver to Genesee County in the face of opposition to the project. When Hochul announced the moratorium Tuesday, the company representative said officials need to review the text of the executive order, but they have not commented since then. Stream recently announced it was canceling plans for a data center in Marion County, South Carolina. South Carolina Media Report said opponents had criticized the project for a lack of information and the impact it would have on a rural area. Unfortunately, because utility power cannot be sourced on this site within the required time frame, Stream is unable to proceed with the development at this location, and the project will not be moving forward, the company said on its website. New York State's moratorium contains exceptions for projects that have already received necessary environmental permits. It was unclear whether Stream's project would be covered by that exception, and the State Department of Environmental Conservation has not provided an answer. Meanwhile, Plug Power said it's moving ahead with plans to sell its property and infrastructure at the business park to Stream for $142 million. Plug Power scrapped its plans to build a green hydrogen facility at Stamp and announced its deal with Stream in February. The closing date for the purchase has been pushed back to March 31st of 2027 to allow more time for state environmental and regulatory review processes to be completed, according to Plug Power. Plug will retain ownership of the substation and the interconnection assets, along with a repurchase right over the land until a second closing, Plug Power said. The deal was previously expected to be completed by the end of last month. In a video message posted the day before the moratorium was announced, Jose Luis Crespo, Plug Power's CEO, said the sale would move forward. To be clear, the New York State transaction has not stopped, Crespo said. Stream has already committed $21 million to this deal. Plug Power, which is based near Albany, was on track to become Stamp's first tenant after it unveiled its plans in 2021. The company later boosted its projected investment in the project to a total of $678 million, with plans to open in 2024 and reach full production last year. But Plug Power paused construction of the project in 2024 amid a cash crunch, and the work never restarted. Plug Power is also selling land and infrastructure at a Texas site to Stream. Crespo said Plug Power and Stream are exploring how Plug's hydrogen solutions could power data center operations, a potential new avenue for the relationship. Crespo said Plug agreed to the goals of protecting ratepayers and the power grid, but opposed a moratorium on new data centers. We believe New York can achieve these goals without slowing projects already underway that bring investment and jobs to communities, he said. So,
You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. Time for sports.
Yes.
No? Yeah, time for sports.
Time for sports.
Time for sports.
Hope it's all good.
Well, it depends on who you like in the World Cup.
Let's
5
see.
minutes from erasing decades of anguish, England turned passive. The painful result, 2 more assists for Lionel Messi, 1 more World Cup final for Argentina. We were so close, England coach Thomas Tuchel said following the 2-1 defeat Wednesday at Atlanta Stadium during a dour post-game session rolling on as Argentina celebrated with song, dance, and degrees of disbelief alongside home fans seated behind the winner's goal. We couldn't keep the level after we scored. This is back to the England coach. We deserved to be up 1-0, but then we got passive. Defense dominated in the first World Cup semifinal without a shot on goal in the first half since 1966. As sparring and a little extra led to 19 total fouls. Then the defending 3-time world champs blitzed England with goals in the 85th and 92nd minutes, sparking a party in Atlanta Stadium and advancing to the World Cup final on Sunday for the 7th time in the country's history. Enjoy it, Argentina coach Lionel Scaloni said. Everybody should be thanking the players. This group is difficult to explain. Honestly, I know you recognize and acknowledge and are very well aware of how special this team is. This is all thanks to them. I want to thank them. Messi, age 39, attempted only 1 shot in the match and spent most of the post-game on-field party as a passive observer seated near the spot on the pitch where Enzo Fernandez changed England's weekend plans a short time earlier. Following Fernandez's lead, Lautaro Martinez secured Argentina's place in the World Cup final with the game-winning goal 7 minutes later. 2 possessions after he fired a rising missile deflected over the net by England keeper Jordan Pickford, Fernandez used a Messi assist for a replay of almost the same shot, but planted this one into the left corner of the net in the 85th minute. In the first 2 minutes of extra time, Martinez settled in front of Pickford at the left edge of the goal and headed a Messi pass by Pickford to cap a stirring rally. We conceded too many chances, England's 6'7" super sub Dan Burns said. When you get that close to the World Cup final after so many years, yeah, it hurts. Argentina will meet Spain on Sunday in East Rutherford, New Jersey, with a chance to claim a 4th title. Spain can break a tie with Italy with a victory. La Roja carries a 37-match unbeaten streak, 30 wins, 7 draws into the match, vying to win the World Cup for the 2nd time.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying the World Cup matches.
I haven't been up on those. I'm not a huge sports fan, but some things I follow and some things I don't. Well, the Sabres are encouraged for 2028 outdoors game. This is from White Harrington. There are plenty of events going on around town the week of the NHL draft last month in KeyBank Center, but one of the most important to the Buffalo Sabres happened just a few hours before Commissioner Gary Bettman took the stage to announce the first-round picks, and he took his long-awaited tour of the new Highmark Stadium. The Sabres are hoping to host a stadium series in Orchard Park in 2028 to honor the 20th anniversary of the iconic Winter Classic game between Buffalo and the Pittsburgh Penguins that marked the beginning of the NHL's annual foray into outdoor hockey. Bettman has publicly indicated multiple times that the league intends to bring a game here, but has yet to actually see the facility. That ended on draft weekend as Pete Welly, president of business for the Bills and Sabres, tweeted a picture of Bettman looking out at the field of the $2.2 billion facility with the notation, "Shoot twice, end." Bettman was joined on the tour by NHL Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, Senior Executive Vice President for the Hockey Operations Colin Campbell, and other league operations staff. That tour could not have gone better, said Gwelly said Thursday as the Sabres prepared to release their 2026-27 schedule. They were incredibly impressed by the stadium, the way it's set up for potential outdoor games. Some of the comments they were throwing around was that this could be the best venue they've had for an outdoor game. Because of the verticality of the seating bowl, people would be right on top of the action. Plus, there's all the different club areas that they can explore, and the back of the house function of the building is so advanced, it's going to be really easy for them to put this whole thing together. They were thrilled with the layout. I don't think the walkthrough could have been any better, so we're looking forward to continuing the discussions on that project. Bettman was in Buffalo for the Sabres opening game night last October for the January announcement. The draft was coming in during the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but he was unable to squeeze a site survey of the stadium into his schedule. As it turned out, his visit was optimal because it came with the facility mostly finished, and not while it was a full-fledged construction site. I think that was a huge benefit, Gwelly said. I think it's hard to articulate what that building is like and what it's going to be like, as we would have had to do. It's one of the best stadiums in the world right now, and unless you see it, I think it's difficult to comprehend. So, taking him there, physically getting him into the building so we can start to envision what this would be, was important. Bettman had long been known as a hands-on commissioner when it comes to the league's outdoor games and regularly takes site surveys for potential hosts. I believe it's not a question of if, it's a question of when we can play an outdoor game in the new stadium, Bettman said when he was in town for Game 2 of Buffalo's first-round series against the Boston Bruins. You could see the wheels turning when we were in there, Gwelly said. You know how Gary is. He's a sharp guy when it comes to this stuff. He knows an opportunity when he sees it, and I think our market responded last year to our season combined with what the stadium looks like. There's going to be an opportunity to really capture some lightning in a bottle over the next couple of years. The NHL's 2026 to 2027 outdoor schedule features the Winnipeg Jets hosting Montreal in the Heritage Classic on October 25th, the Utah Mammoth hosting Colorado in the Winter Classic on December 31st, and Dallas hosting Vegas in the Stadium Series on February 20th. The Winnipeg game will be in Princess Auto Stadium, home to the CFL's Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Utah sites Rice-Eccles Stadium at the University of Utah, and the Stars Golden Knights game will be played at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, home of the Dallas Cowboys. Texas is usually kind of warm. This should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do get cold winters, but not cold enough for ice. They're going to have artificially frozen ice.
Well, in one of the foremost amateur golf tournaments in the world, in Niagara Falls, Tyler Spielman emerged with a 5-stroke lead in the men's division during the second round of the Porter Cup yesterday. Spielman, age 20, broke away from a tie with Kalen Dulaney after the first round by stacking his initial 400 par performance with a 600 par the next day. I hit my driver pretty solid the last few days and hit a lot of good iron shots, he said. And then when I got into trouble, I was able to scramble and save par with my putter. I made a lot of putts today. Spielman has leaned on his experience playing at Niagara Falls Country Club in the past, with 2026 marking his third year competing in the tournament. I would say I just know where to miss more, he said, adding you can kind of get screwed out there if you're missing the wrong spot. Heading into the third day of the tournament, Spielman's mindset is focused on enjoying his time in Western New York, away from his usual home in Cave Creek, Arizona. I'm just trying to have fun. I haven't played well here in the past 2 years, so I think I'm just going to enjoy being in the moment. He said, this is why we play, just to be able to come out here and compete. Joining Spielman at the top of the leaderboard are Dublin, California native Jack Hayden and Western Australia native Josiah Edwards. Both golfers are tied at 138, good enough for spots in the top 10. Hayden is competing in the tournament for the first time, but recognizes one familiar face among the participants, his older brother, Joey Hayden. Through 2 rounds, it has been the younger Hayden brother with the better tournament, explaining that I'm overall pleased with the way I played, and hopefully I'll keep playing well and keep some good rounds this weekend. Hayden acknowledged it's been very cool playing in the same competition as his brother, but confirmed there is definitely a brotherly rivalry that exists between the two. Edwards, 19, is far from home for his first Porter Cup and is working on adapting to the change. It's really, really, really dry in Western Australia and really hot, he said. The courses are nothing similar to this, so it's a different environment, but it's good to be around. While visiting the area, Edwards went on Maid of the Mist on Wednesday, explaining it was like a little kid. It was quite fun. While visiting the area, Edwards isn't the only international competitor playing well. South Africa native Christopher Bagnall shot 2 under par yesterday to bring his total gross to 139. This is Bagnall's third time playing on the par 70, 6,871-yard course, and he is one of several members of the Notre Dame golf team in this year's field. I started coming here with one of my other teammates, and we keep coming back, and now it's good to see that a couple of others are also joining, he said. It's great to have the Fighting Irish team here. A sense of community as well as a friendly face on the putting green. It's good to see each other, to be honest. When he's out in South Bend, Indiana, Bagnall lives in South Africa. But there's a reason he continues to return to Niagara Falls during the summer. I absolutely love this tournament. I love the people and the course, he said. The past few years I haven't really played how I wanted to, so it's good to finally get a couple of good rounds in. And the third round began at 7:30 this morning at the Niagara Falls Country Club.
Well, the Blue Jays pitcher Cease finds ABS to be entertaining. In a 1992 movie, Mr. Baseball, aging slugger Jack Elliott, portrayed by Tom Selleck, lived by a simple mantra. Baseball is a game, and games are supposed to be fun. And on the big screen, that belief has ultimately helped the fictional Elliott overcome his own bad habits and imperfections. 24 years later in real life is one reason that big leaguers like Toronto Blue Jays ace Dylan Cease appreciate the first season of the MLB's automated ball strike challenge system. I think it's entertaining, Cease said at Tuesday's MLB All-Star Game press conference. I like it when it goes my way, and I don't like it when it doesn't. I think it's entertainment. It's just one of those things where I've just kind of accepted that it is what it is, and I thought that's been kind of nice. At the unofficial halfway mark of the first season of the ABS implementation, Cease's sentiments were echoed by most players attending the Summer Classic. It wasn't that they just appreciated what the system added in terms of correcting mistakes, they also acknowledged the new competitive wrinkles it added to that perhaps hadn't been appreciated beforehand. For starters, each team's 2 incorrect challenges per game have become precious commodities. Lose them and your team is at a decided disadvantage. It happens more often than you might think. There's been an average of roughly 4.2 challenges per game throughout the season's first half, and only 53.3% of those have been successful. You can really see a difference when you're out of challenges, Los Angeles Angels slugger Mike Trout said. It changes the whole game. We'll talk about it all the time. When we lose challenges in the game, it's a game changer. The system has also supported the idea that catchers have the best view for determining the strike zone, succeeding at 58.7% of their challenges, while batters have succeeded 47.8% of the time, and pitchers only 36.6% of the time. That intuitively makes sense given each player's point of view, but it can sometimes require emotional management when a pitcher believes he caught the zone, only for a catcher to keep the challenge in his pocket. It's just something at the end of the day. It just goes back to the trust that pitchers put in their catchers. Athletics catcher Shea Langelier said, they know we're there for them at the end of the day, and we want them to be successful. Well, they're talking a little bit of a foreign language to me there, but...
Well, to me, I don't see anything entertaining about that review process. I don't know where this pitcher gets that idea, but I refuse to argue with him.
Whatever floats their boat.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. At 34 minutes past the hour, it's time for some advice from Eric. First letter says, my sister passed away without a will or trust. Our sister-in-law told me that my sister told her she wanted all her things sold and divided up and given to the niece and nephews. My sister never told me anything. There's a good amount of money now to divide up. I am the personal representative and would like to know what is fair. By law, the money goes to my brother and myself. I haven't clarified exactly how the money was supposed to be divided, but I have 2 children, and my brother has 2 children. His 2 children have had children, and they have 14 total children now. My brother and I are far apart in age. He married young, and I married in my late 20s. My children have not married yet and started families, so I feel it is fair to give the first generation nephews and nieces only. That way it's not a 14-2 ratio, my brother's side to my side. Part of that 14 are babies. The first generation can give to their families as they see fit. Am I being fair? This sounds reasonable, Eric says. If you haven't already, consult with an estate lawyer to ensure you've done everything you need to do when an estate is in probate. If you're free and clear, what may be cleanest is following the law and giving your brother his share and telling him about the wishes your sister-in-law communicated to you. His side of the family can then use their judgment to figure out the best way to honor your sister. Don't like the implications of all of that. Too much opportunity for divisiveness. Oh well. The next letter, Dear Eric, I don't like to visit my fiance's family with him because they don't talk to me when I'm around them, and they don't ask me anything about me. They all want to talk about themselves, and that's all they talk about. I've tried to make an effort on multiple occasions with them, and I made sure I'm friendly, approachable, polite, and I show an interest in their lives and ask how they are. They have never reciprocated the conversation and quickly changed the subject to bring it back to them. So I've stopped talking to them, and I've stopped going out with my fiancé to see them. I'm not used to being around people that behave this way. My family were extremely welcoming and generous to everyone who visited. I am like that, and I surround myself with people who hold a mutual conversation and are as interested in me as I am in them. Why are they like this? Is there something mentally wrong with people who just want to talk about themselves? It's sad, but they're so rude, they hurt my feelings. Unwelcome guest. Dear guest, this is a tough position to be in. I empathize with how isolating it must feel to be around your fiancé's family members and yet still be treated as an outsider. The first part of this advice might seem like cold comfort, but I hope you'll give it some consideration. It's possible that these folks just aren't adept at hospitality or are awkward conversationalists. This doesn't make everything okay, but it's what's coming across as rude and hurtful to you may not be intentional exclusion. You write that your family is quite different, so you reasonably have an expectation that others will make strides to welcome and include a guest. Your fiancé's family members may not have the same expectation of themselves. They may not even realize what they're doing. So try asking your fiancé about it. You can share what you've experienced and how you've felt and ask him if he's noticed it too. This doesn't necessarily need to be presented as a problem he has to fix, but he might be able to help grease the conversational wheels, either by making sure to include you more or by talking to his relatives one-on-one. He might even be able to give you insight into the ways certain family members talk or act, which can help you feel more like an insider and better set you up for future visits. And the last letter, a short one. Dear Eric, I'm responding to Flummox, who said a friend invited over to the house insists on washing dishes after the meal, but doesn't wash them well. All efforts to convince her to please leave the dishes alone failed. Perhaps the hosting couple could consider using really nice disposable dishes, silverware, and plastic glasses. That way, no one's dishes get broken or poorly washed, and the guest can relax and enjoy herself. Sign, no more dirty dishes. Dear Dishes, this is a graceful solution that avoids awkward conversations and allows the hosts to extend their hospitality without worrying. Thanks. Yeah, I like that. As much as I hate plastic forks and knives.
Yeah, I'm not too fond of them myself, but sometimes guests need to learn how to be guests.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, back to the front page. We have an analysis from Matt Spetelnik from Reuters. Trump risks repeat of old failures with escalation in Iran. President Trump has ramped up U.S. airstrikes on Iran and threatened broader escalation, but there's little sign that a military strategy that has already failed to extract concessions from Tehran will succeed this time. With the collapse of an interim ceasefire deal reached a month ago, Trump, unable to disentangle the U.S. from the unpopular war he started, finds himself in a bind as he seeks to break Iran's grip on the vital Strait of Hormuz and bend a defiant Tehran to his will. While the two sides have so far avoided a return to full-scale conflict, increasingly ominous developments have dimmed hope of finding an off-ramp anytime soon in a crisis that has again driven up global oil changes and sent shockwaves through financial markets. A game of tit-for-tat attacks continued on sixth day on Thursday, while Iran signaled it could prod its Houthi allies in Yemen to close another key oil shipping strait, the Bab al-Mandeb, at the mouth of the Red Sea if Washington hits Iran's power infrastructure as Trump has threatened. Signaling increased frustration, Trump has discussed with aides who, in some cases publicly, about possibly expanding targets to include strikes on energy plants and bridges, sending ground forces to seize Iraq's Karg Island oil hub, and bombing a deep underground nuclear-linked site known as Pickaxe Mountain. Some of these options may be unrealistic due to the high risks and potential for domestic and geopolitical blowback. He's issued similar threats before, only to back down. But most analysts agree that a major U.S. escalation, short of a highly dangerous and politically untenable ground invasion to oust Iran's government, would have little chance of being any more effective in forcing Iran to change course than earlier phases of the nearly 4.5-month-old war, in which U.S. and Israeli strikes killed senior leaders and have heavily damaged military capabilities. There is no reason to believe that this latest set of attacks, or whatever the president has in mind, will compel the Iranians to change their thinking, said Jonathan Panikoff, former deputy U.S. intelligence officer for the Middle East, now at the Atlantic Council think tank, is perhaps more likely to harden their position. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The unraveling of the deal comes as Trump faced pressure to end a war that has killed thousands, mostly in Iran and Lebanon, inflicted economic pain at home, and driven down his approval rating in the months ahead of November's midterm elections. Negotiations meant to turn the interim accord into a permanent peace deal have stalled, though there have been hints of a possible diplomatic movement behind the scenes. Trump welcomed what he described as a release of a U.S. citizen detained in Iran, calling it a goodwill gesture. But Iran's judiciary said no prisoner had been freed or exchanged, according to the state media. Trump may be hoping he can bomb Iran back to the negotiating table over its nuclear program, which he sets as his main war objective, but the root of the latest hostilities are differing interpretations of what the preliminary deal means for control of the strait, where Iran showed during the war it could choke off 1/5 of the world's oil shipments. Iran sees itself as having a role in managing the waterway, possibly even charging fees or tolls, while the U.S. and its Gulf allies insist on a return to free and safe passage. Most experts see little indication Tehran will make the concessions Trump is seeking. Tehran's resumption of attacks on commercial shipping in recent days, which the White House on Thursday called a violation of the interim accord, triggered the latest U.S. response, including reinstatement of a blockade of Iranian ports. Tehran also faces mounting pressure after Washington revoked a waiver allowing it to sell oil internationally, undoing one of its biggest gains under the interim agreement. 3 U.S. officials told Reuters that the wave of U.S. strikes could serve as shaping operations, giving Trump more options by targeting Iranian military capabilities that the U.S. would want to have destroyed before taking bigger steps. Iran has responded by signaling its readiness to widen the war, warning that it could hit the civilian facilities of U.S. Gulf allies if Trump does escalate further. It retains significant missile and drone arsenals. And Tehran is also asking Yemen's Houthis to be prepared to close the Red Sea oil route if the United States strikes Iranian power infrastructure. 3 sources told Reuters on Thursday, posing a potent new threat to global energy supplies, particularly since some shipments have been diverted to the Red Sea. But Mark Dubowitz, head of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a hardline anti-Iran think tank in Washington, wrote on X that Tehran was playing the Hormuz card out of desperation, and such moves would hasten global efforts to build new pipelines and shipping corridors to erode its ability to extort the world. Some analysts suggest that Trump, who campaigned for a second term on promises to avoid former interventions and focuses on American economic concerns, may commit some of the same mistakes he made when he launched the war on February 28th. He did so with little explanation of his reasons or a clear exit strategy. No matter how much pressure the administration applies or how many new threats it issues, Iran's leadership is unlikely to capitulate. Daniel Citranovich, a senior Iran researcher at Israel's Institute for National Security Studies, said, and a former Israeli military intelligence officer, said on X, if President Trump continues expanding the target set, Tehran is likely to respond in kind, he wrote.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio on yesterday said the U.S. would focus international counterterrorism efforts on far-left terror, telling officials from more than 60 countries that leftist violence had been overlooked. A Washington conference hosted by Rubio has sparked concerns from Democrats that the Trump administration is politicizing counterterrorism efforts and draining resources from fighting extremism on other fronts. In a speech, Rubio said the Islamic militancy threat was severely diminished due to coordinated international efforts, but that rising left-wing violence was a blind spot. We can and we must identify and map this threat and rebuild our counterterrorism and architecture to defeat it, Rubio said, citing a transnational threat from groups who hate the West and target its politicians and infrastructure. The conference marks the Trump administration's most significant effort yet to internationalize a counterterrorism focus that critics say is not supported by data, raising questions about whether resources will be shifted away from monitoring Islamic militancy and far-right violence. President Trump has made countering left-wing groups a priority. Trump singled out the Antifa movement on the campaign trail in 2024 and vowed to take action against left-wing groups he accuses of fomenting violence after the killing of conservative activist and Trump ally Charlie Kirk last year. The Trump administration convened a law enforcement workshop in May to discuss the threat of far-left groups and would co-host a second workshop with Germany, Rubio said. We will either cooperate across our borders or the terrorists will continue to exploit the gaps between them, Rubio said. The United States is building the infrastructure, the partnership, and the strategy to defeat the scourge of far-left terror. The U.S. Treasury is expanding probes into the use of charitable and nonprofit structures to hide foreign influence and allow violence, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told the conference on Thursday. 11 Democratic lawmakers wrote to Rubio on Wednesday questioning the evidence for the new focus on left-wing groups and called the White House's May counterterrorism strategy, which did not mention neo-Nazi or other far-right groups, a politically partisan document. The letter, obtained by Reuters, referred to concerns that designating groups as far-left terror organizations risked targeting lawful protests and political opponents. We strongly urge the department to return its focus to a serious mission set that is definitionally apolitical, data-driven, and rooted in reality, instead of rubber-stamping the political priorities of extremists within the administration, whose views and policies put U.S. national security and the American people at risk, wrote the lawmakers. The State Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the letter. At the conference, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said leftists were driven by envy and hatred and derided Antifa, whatever that is, demonstrators as all deformed in some way in their appearance, in their dress, and their mannerism. Why is there not one normal-looking person among them? Every one of them, through the course of their life and their decisions, has scarred their body and their appearance in many different ways, to the point where their outer appearance becomes a manifestation of their inner hatred, Miller said. Rubio, in his speech, cited property damage and looting during demonstrations after the 2020 police killing of George Floyd as an example of left-wing violence that has been ignored, arguing that think tanks and journalists often agree with the goals of left-wing militants. Rubio also said left-wing groups work with foreign states hostile to the U.S., citing Iranian proxy networks as increasingly intimately tied to leftist militant groups around the world, although he did not provide evidence of such links. He also accused Cuba's communist leaders of having helped build the far left in the United States without offering evidence to support the claim.
Trump's teleprompter, operator facing probe. I'm looking forward to seeing what this is. President Trump's longtime teleprompter operator Gabriel Perez is under investigation by federal regulators over potential insider trading on prediction market platform Kalshi, according to two sources familiar with the matter. Kalshi identified the suspicious trading activity through information collected as part of its customer onboarding and market surveillance processes and referred the matter to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, one of the sources said. Our surveillance team promptly flagged and referred these trades to the CFTC after an exchange investigation. We've been assisting regulators on this matter and provided evidence we collected, as we do any referral. Robert Denault, head of enforcement at Kalshi, told Reuters in a statement. Perez, The teleprompter operator is fully cooperating with the CFTC on this matter, the second person said. The source has requested anonymity because the matter is confidential. The president is aware of the teleprompter operator and the staffer is now on unpaid leave, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt told reporters on Thursday. Leavitt later added that Perez will no longer be working in the White House. Asking if other White House staffers had access to Kalshi and Polymarket on their government devices, Leavitt says she did not know. She added that there were no other White House or administration staffers to her knowledge who were suspected of using privileged information to place bets. Several officials and executives have recently been investigated over potential insider trading on prediction market platforms like Polymarket and Kalshi. Earlier this year, a U.S. Army soldier was charged with placing bets tied to the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro on Polymarket. In June, federal regulators began an investigation into former Representative George Santos over potential insider trading on Kalshi. Kalshi's so-called mention markets include contracts that allow traders to wager on whether a specific word or phrase will be said during public events such as speeches, broadcasts, or corporate earnings calls. Such markets have faced regulatory scrutiny, including from the CFTC over concerns they could be vulnerable to insider trading or manipulation by people with advanced access to prepared remarks or speech transcripts. Kalshi froze Perez's account before the profits, which amounted to more than $90,000 and were taken off the platform, these sources said. The internal investigation included an interview with Perez, and market makers also reported potential irregularities in several mentioned market trades throughout the whistleblower channels, the first source added, and Kalshi had said in June that it would mandate employment disclosures for users trading on sensitive contracts and launch a whistleblower portal, steps aimed at aligning the platform with regulatory expectations for market integrity. Prediction market startups such as Kalshi and Polymarket have been battling regulatory risks for years now, including concerns over market manipulation and insider trading. These platforms allow users to trade contracts tied to the outcome of future events of sports, election outcomes, and weather. ABC News first reported the CFTC investigation into Perez's earlier on Thursday. Well,
apparently it's now possible to bet on just about anything.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not a gambler, so to me this is all
Yeah.
out of my league.
Well, yesterday, Governor Kathy Hochul doubled down on her executive order to impose a one-year moratorium on hyperscale data centers in New York, expressing scant concern it could entice businesses to move their facilities to other states. They can go there right now. I think when they look for the state that has the most clear road ahead, they'll come back to New York. I have no doubt about it. Hochul told reporters in the state capitol. They'll come back on our terms. That's the difference. Moments earlier, Hochul had concluded a roundtable with farmers, elected officials, and business representatives to discuss the executive order she signed on Tuesday. The moratorium ceases for 1 year the development of any data center without an existing permit. It affects data centers that use 50 megawatts or more of power, which puts the focus on large facilities powering the explosion of artificial intelligence, or AI. The moratorium drew criticism from some business and union representatives, as well as President Trump. On Wednesday, the president called out Hochul for blocking data centers, which he described as big, strong, bold, and money-making machines, and liquid gold for the states where they are built. New York State has made a terrible decision, Trump said on his Truth Social account. Hochul said large-scale data centers in New York have reaped tax breaks due to exemptions passed decades ago to support email and internet host operations. She promised to propose legislation to repeal the tax incentives for the facilities. If the president thinks handing over taxpayer dollars without conditions and just saying, come on in, and somehow that's considered liquid gold, I disagree with that assessment, Hochul said. We have a different interpretation of what the benefits can be, and so we do things differently. Well, running out of time here.
Let's look at a couple of comics here.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, we got a couple of good ones. And I like like Family Circus.
I
We
like
have
Family
Dolly is sitting there angrily shaking her finger at her little toy doll, her little Raggedy Ann sitting on a stool, and she says, "And don't budge off that chair if you know what's good for you, young lady." What do you think?
Well, Hagar the Horrible is a cute one today.
Yes.
Helga, I bought a magic mirror for you at the thrift store. Thank you, Helga says. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the mirror says in all capital letters an exclamation, you are! And as she walks away smiling, the mirror's think box says, I'll be darned if I go back to that stinking musty junk store. There you go.
Well, you've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, July 17th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, please call us at 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Don Williams.
and JJ Patak, and we thank you for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability